Alrighty, so I look forward to seeing your code. And again, remember the idea here is that you're actually challenging yourself to write code based on what you've learned, and it's okay. You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't even have to be great at it. You just want to give it time, and that's a key thing is to give it time for it to come, let your brain ruminate. If you've ever heard that term, let your brain kind of give it some time. All right, so let's finish this up, right? So this is where I would start using my code editor. I'm going to copy this, right? And come here. I'm going to paste that. Because now I'm going to say if it's equal to 3, what do I know about 3 people or more? Then that's 10, right? Come here. Do it again. Oh, my bad. Right there. Actually, it should have been right here. There we go. So basically now I'm saying if number in household is 4, okay, right? So what do I know? Now that's 8. Okay. So I think you get the idea of what I'm doing here. I'm just continuing with these if-else statements, right? So now it's 5. So if there's 5, which is really 4, because we're adding the one from the 6. And by the way, do you notice a pattern here, right? It's decreasing by 2 each time. So there is another way we could do this. But we're going to continue on with this example because I think it's at least helpful. Okay, so if it's, in this case, 6, right? So then it would be 4. Now, here's where, right, if it's more than 5, so that's where understanding our comparison operators, right, is good. So we could say here, oh, and by the way, this is the other thing we could do here, is we could also write what's called a switch statement. And switch statements are great, right? They're very highly used, and it's just another way of writing conditional logic. As a matter of fact, it would be a good challenge. I almost want to do it, is to have you rewrite this in a switch statement. Okay? Okay, switch on which expression, right? In case it's this, in case it's this. We'll see. I would say if you want to learn more, you definitely want to just try that now. We'll see switch statements later. Okay, so now we have 6, and so now what do we do for the last one, right? And actually, it would be, in some sense, right here, right, our else. So if it's not 1 through 6, then it's more, right, more than 5 people, right? Because if it's this one, it's 4. So there's a couple ways we could do this. We could either write that code here, or we could explicitly, say if number of people in household, and here's a new one if you haven't seen it, greater than 6. Okay, so if it's greater than 6, then what do we do? Right? Then we take that same thing. There we go. Okay. All right. Actually be 2, right? So now what we can do, and this is such an important thing to do, is actually test our code and our logic to make sure it is giving us the output we want. And so I would say let's console log, and let's kind of make this a little nicer, right? And I'd say based on the number of members of the household of, actually household is one word, of, and this is where we could use, and again I'm using template strings here, okay? What's the number, right? So in other words, we wouldn't put in the hard-coded number, we would put whatever the variable is, and we'd say the points would be, and then just tell it what the actual points would be. Okay, period. So that gives us a nice output here. Okay, so let's come back over here. All right, let's let this run. Again, it's been running through, so now we see all the logic. Okay, all of our conditional code. We see an output. We know we have 3 in here. So we can just refresh, step in. Cool. It could evaluate the first one, right? Which, by the way, let's see if it'll do that. Right? That's false. That's another way. You don't even have to paste it in there. You can actually just say, is this one false? This one is going to be true. So we know when we step into that code, boom. So now before this line executed, carbon footprint was 0, the points. But now it's going to take 0, add 10 to it, and now it's done. No other line gets executed. Okay? So let's go ahead and hit step. So we output that line based on the number of members, should be members of the household, number of members of household of 3. That's a little wordy. The points would be 10, right? So we add 10 points. Perfect. That's awesome. Okay. So, couple things in here. I just want to just make sure we've talked about the switch statement. Definitely recommend, if you want, is to go do that. I was looking for that comparison list that I saw before that I kept running by. Right now, we will talk about and ors, and not, or and not, but mostly and or, because then you can have multiple conditions, right? So we could have, instead of just one condition, we'll have multiples, and we'll cover that in a future video, but I think this is a good place to start. Okay, so you have two options here. First, right, you can rewrite, or write, not rewrite, you'll write it below, write this logic using a switch statement. Okay, option 1. Option 2 is, right, come up with a decision you make and write logic, again, conditional statements for that. And you want at least a couple, right? So have an if else, and you could use the else if you wanted, just by itself, okay? So you want to do that. So in your comments here, tell me which option you've chose, and then include that code and make sure it's working code. Again, reach out if you need help with this. So in this code along, we had 2 coding challenges, right? So we had a first coding challenge, and I'll probably just make this one, right? I'll name it something else. What should we name the commit here? Right, the commit message. Would be second. Too simple. Yeah, okay, second coding challenge. Okay, cool. All right, so then when you get through with that, you're ready to go ahead and submit your commit history URL. And then I think what we may do for the discussion this week is actually go ahead and work on maybe a couple other here. And I'm going to add a function call to give you that experience. All right, I'll see you on the next one.